Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining DynTek and Citrix for today's presentation on architecting a secure, compliant remote access strategy for critical infrastructure. During the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A module or the chat module to ask questions, and we will address those throughout the presentation or at the very end. So without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to Bruce Payne, the principal architect for our Citrix practice at DynTek. Bruce?
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that. And joining me today are Oscar Rodriguez and Manny Benitez with Citrix, each SMEs in their particular discipline and vertical. And so we just want to talk about how we as DynTek and Citrix partner together with you to create a secure, compliant remote access strategy to your critical infrastructure. Common challenges. We have done this enough and been around the block enough times to know that you face some pretty challenging obstacles when it comes to protecting your critical infrastructure. Not the least of which would be compliance and security audits, because if those are not passed, if they're failed, this could result in substantial fines. I know that for NERC audits that are failed, the fines can be up to $1 million per infraction per day. So that's a pretty challenging obstacle to overcome. You don't want to be failing those audits. Cybersecurity challenges, how do you protect that data center and not let anyone in that doesn't have access or shouldn't have access to it? End user experience. If you do provide access, but it takes 20 minutes for the user to log in, and then once they get in, the experience is not good. Yes, you're giving access, but your users are just really frustrated. And you take the 20-minute login times the number of users, whether that's tens of users or thousands of users, you see that you've run into a user experience that is costing you money if it isn't good. Little bit limited scalability of some of the solutions. We were with a particular utility customer, and they were using a jump box to get into their data center, and then from there into their critical infrastructure data center. And it did not pass the audits, but B, it also wasn't scalable for them. So how do you provide your users the resources and still be able to scale this out to what you need? Difficulty of administration with multiple control panels and administrative consoles. It just becomes kind of ungainly to try to administrate it and provide user access. Upgrading aging data center infrastructure. We were with a customer this week where they were trying to frantically replace 10-year-old servers because they knew that it wasn't a matter of if, but when they failed. So that's something that we all face, right? Keeping that infrastructure fresh. Sufficiently protecting the data center electronic security perimeter boundary, and then struggling to provide users with both NERC or audit-worthy and non-NERC use cases. So restricting access to all applications, while at the same time restricting access to NERC assets as well. So those are just some of the challenges, and you might have others that have come to mind as we went through those, or some of these might not ring a bell with you, but others are there. So we've seen these. So the DynTek solution is we tackle these extremely complex requirements with a design and implementation to overcome all the challenges. So we listed the challenges. Here's how DynTek overcomes them. We have the expertise needed to work with the stringent requirements of your field. Our consultants have been doing this for years and are NERC certified and know what you're facing. We have a proven track record of delivering to this vertical. to utilities in particular. The solutions pass security and compliance audits, such as NERC, CIP, and WEC. And then, sorry, my WebEx is covering some of my content. DynTek works seamlessly with the customer to design, build, and implement secure, compliant, and scalable solutions. So it isn't us just going in and totally taking over the field for you. We work with you and your IT staff to create a solution that meets your needs. And the DynTek and Citrix team understands the cybersecurity requirements and has the experience deploying to those restrictions. So when you start talking about the audits or the cybersecurity needs of your particular solution, you will be talking in language our engineers understand. This is a very high level of view of the Citrix environment. I call it the 10,000 foot view. And it just gives you an idea of the components that would be part of a Citrix build out. My co-presenters all have a slide that is similar and are going to talk to this, so I'll just cover this at a very high level. You have an end user who needs resources, and they're going to come in through the Citrix ADC application delivery controller, aka NetScaler, right? Those of us have been around for a while. That's what we know it by, the Citrix NetScaler. And then it's going to go through the system and provide authentication, and eventually the end user gets access to the resources they need to be able to do their job. So again, very high level, and we're going to cover this again in another slide, so I'll just leave it at that. I do want to point out that there are options. You notice that all of our components are listed as on-premises, and for our critical data centers, that's important, right? All of these components can remain on-prem and are in complete control of your IT staff. There are other options for Citrix, but for the critical infrastructure data centers, most companies are going to require that those pieces be put on-prem. So this graphic is to represent how we give different user groups access and to the resources they need to do their jobs. So I have NERC certified users, right? And their resources reside in my critical data center. But they also need non-NERC applications, which also reside in that same data center. So these same users will need my productivity and applications and VDI. So these users, my highest security users, have access to all three of those groups. My non-NERC users will have access to the non-NERC applications and VDI that are running in my critical data center, and they will then also have access to the productivity applications. You see that they don't have access, though, to my NERC applications. And then in the far right, office workers or task workers, I have my productivity users. They have access only to my productivity applications and VDI. So through security groups, we're able to assign users the resources they need to do their job and do it in providing a quality user experience. So the DynTek expertise. We have a proven track record of delivering for our utility customers. Our solution has passed multiple security and compliance audits, such as NERC, CIP, and WEC, regional and national there. Able to identify use cases and design based on these requirements. So you say, yeah, but you don't understand. We have this application that we have to provide to our users, and it's it doesn't work well, and all these things. Been there, done that. We understand that, and we've been able to overcome the greatest of challenges there. able to create a scalable environment without compromising security. So whether you need to provide to 100 users or 10 users or tens of thousands of users, our solutions scale to that. Provide a wide range of technological experience in-house. I suppose that's probably one of the most important things I could emphasize here. We have the expertise in-house. So we're not going to be subbing out to other contractors for this. This is all something that our DynTek consultants are able to deploy for you. The ability and agility to execute complex solutions. One of our consultants, he has the ability to take the most complex, usually IT related thinking and turn it into a description that everybody can understand. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Yeah, all of the details are going to be nitty-gritty and complex, but we're able to take this and make it into something that is very understandable and usable and consumable by you and your end users. Okay. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Oscar Rodriguez and Manny Benitez.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Oh,
There you go. We see you.
No, you're muted now, Oscar.
sorry about that. All right. So thank you, Bruce. I'll say that again for allowing us to be here. You know, I'm from Texas, so I know that the challenges that utility companies are facing. So this is important work that DynTek is doing, and so I really appreciate you having us here. I wanted to start off briefly by just talking, giving you a little bit about my background. You know, I've been working as Citrix admin for over 20 years, and have worked in different verticals such as telco, oil and gas, quite a bit of healthcare. So just to be clear, I'm not saying that to demonstrate how old I am. I should probably change that LinkedIn photo, but rather I'm saying it to just to give you examples of the different type of businesses, different type of verticals that can really benefit from virtualizing their applications using Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So this next slide, I'll just mention a couple of things. You know, one of the focus, the items that Citrix has been focusing on is providing a best experience while users are connecting to their virtualized applications, and doing that in the most secure way possible. So, you know, one of the places that I worked was at Brooke Army Medical Center here in San Antonio, which is the largest medical facility for the military. And they were using Citrix in a large part because of those two things, the great experience and the security that it provides. And I'll talk about both of those here in a little bit, but just to give you examples of what those do, the experience, you know, how does that translate? What is it that it brings? So we have this protocol, this high definition user experience, which is HDX. And that protocol brings a lot of capabilities within inside of it to address those challenges that might happen when you are virtualizing an application, or depending on the application that you're using. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But going back to the security piece, I think what Bruce was saying is a really good example of this contextualized, containerized, and embedded. What does that mean? Well, that means that if I have exactly what Bruce was saying, if I have, you know, a user that is NERC and one that is not NERC, or you know, one that's just a productivity user, we can have different policies, security policies, and apply them to those different groups. So at Brooke Army, it might be their most important above everything else is security. So what they did is they locked everything down. You couldn't access, you know, you couldn't do printing, you couldn't access USB drives, you couldn't. We have a lot of granular policies that you can apply depending on who the users are, and not just who they are, but where they're connecting from, and even what type of device they're connecting on as well. So if they're on an iPad, they can get certain applications. If they're on a Windows machine, you can provide certain applications as well. So we're able to get very granular with that security and making sure that users are able to access only what they need to. On the choice side, this is all part of those other things, because now the users can access all of those different applications, and we provide that the user's getting the same consistent interface. They're getting the same consistent experience across all the different devices. And that's where the choice comes in. And that can be the same whether it's a Windows machine or a Mac or an iPad or an Android device. They'll be able to access those in the same way and get that same user experience. So the next one that I have is a little bit more in depth about that HDX technology. So I work with doctors a lot, and one of the things that is really important for them is being able to see X-rays and MRIs. And doing that through a virtualized application, the reason we did it is because when you virtualize an application like that, you're able to access that data really quick, because to Bruce's, and I'll show this other one in a bit, but to Bruce's slide of everything is inside of that on-prem location. And so the Citrix systems, the MRI databases, the X-ray, they're all together. So that experience for the user is really fast. And that's where that optimized user experience from. Really fast performance across all of different devices, having a consistent user experience. And for MRIs and X-rays, that multimedia performance and graphics acceleration is really important. They can't see a blocky version of an X-ray. They can't see a, somehow affected version of MRIs. They need to be able to slice very detailed through all of those different slices of MRI. So that's really important, and that's what Citrix has been improving on for years and keep adding to that performance capability. The peripheral plug and play, I'll mention those two as well, because we support all different type of USB devices, and that makes it easier for you as a customer to come in and make sure that your systems are going to be provided, your current workflows are going to be provided. The printing that's also available through Citrix has been the best. As a Citrix admin, I've actually supported other company brands, and Citrix has just been really fantastic when it comes to printing and peripheral plug and play support. The unified communications, we now support all manner of different communications platforms such as Teams, WebEx, Zoom. I've tested out all of them, and as a matter of fact, did a demo where I was showing off Teams with inside a virtual desktop, and it was really functioning fantastic. So and that all translates to that last one. It's that flexibility for any device on any network. Again, Windows, Mac, iPad. So next slide that I have here is really just encapsulates everything. That this is what the results is: being able to boost that worker productivity, having that consistent user experience, having that security, is going to empower making sure that that what your users are connecting to are as secure as possible. Everything is going over SSL. So everything is encrypted and will stay secure both on the device and all the way to the on-prem Citrix environment. So let's take a look at that really quick on the next one. I wanted to give you an example here from, I've told you about what the user experience is like, but what about from the administrator? Why is this beneficial to how you run your applications? How does that work for Citrix virtual apps and desktops? Well, first of all, it's one architecture that is going to support all different applications and desktops. Right here, it gives you a support for different types of OSs, not just Windows Server, but also Windows 10, Windows 11, even Linux. You can put those delivery agents on. So that means that I'm able to have sessions, user sessions on a very specific Windows 10, something that they're very familiar with, or we can just put it on a Windows server where they just see, I'm on a Mac right now, and I can connect to Windows application and just see the Windows application. I don't need to connect to a full desktop. I can see what's called seamless applications. And of course, we have very easy ways to make sure that you're able to keep up with upgrades. As we add more features to it, we add more to our monitoring, to our support tools. And as a matter of fact, the next slide is one of those monitoring tools that to me is part of the reason why I, as a Citrix administrator, I've worked most of my career outside of Citrix. And so I can tell you that this particular tool is why I absolutely love it, is because I'm able to see not just the performance of my environment, but I'm able to see very granularly what the users are doing, what applications they have open. Are they doing something that they shouldn't be? Are these policies, which policies are getting applied? I can make reports based off of that. So to me, it's a very strong platform on being able to make sure that you have the best performance for your users. So the next slide is a little bit of a callback to what Bruce was talking about. And so why is the way we architect it important? I can tell you that it provides a couple of things. I have always said that if you architect it using best practice, you will always have a great uptime with Citrix. And that is because there's a lot of redundancy built in that we allow in this environment. From the user side, could be any device from anywhere, but that gateway, which is that ADC that Bruce was talking about, is really the core of a lot of our security, because that does a lot of the logic of who's the user, where are they coming from, what kind of system are they connecting from. And so once they are able to log in, then we have those other different pieces that the users are able to see. And from there, those applications, those Windows applications and those Windows desktops or Linux applications desktops, they can access those different applications that the users are actually trying to connect to. In my case, working with a lot of doctors, like I said, it's X-rays, MRIs, a lot of EMR applications, electronic medical records applications. So those are just some examples of my own background. But that leads into a little bit of what my colleague Manny Benitez is going to talk about, which is the gateway. That ADC brings, there's so much that those appliances can bring. And so that's what Manny's going to talk to on these next slides. Manny, I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Oscar. And thank you, Bruce, for having us here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah.
And thanks,
So,
Mike.
you're very welcome. Thank you. So the ADC is, sometimes it's referred to as networking and security, Swiss Army knife, if you will, right? Because it has so many built-in features and functionality. But when we look at all of the features and functionality, they essentially boil down into, what I like to call three umbrellas or three silos or sets. And so what we have is we have the availability set, and that includes the load balancing, which can be local inside the data center. And it can also be across data centers, right? With the global server load balancing feature, we can load balance across data centers to provide not just high availability in one location, but high availability across locations. We also have a subset of, or a set of security features, right? We have, of course, we do SSL offloading, but we can also provide DDoS protections. We can provide DNS security. We can provide AAA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So there are a whole host of security features that are also built into the same platform. And then the one that we're talking about here today is the secure remote access feature, or the gateway feature. And that's a feature that allows us to connect to the Citrix resources in a very secure way. Okay, the way to think about this is that when we're connecting to those Citrix resources through the Citrix gateway, the ADC gateway, we're not creating a VPN tunnel. There's no direct access from that end user into the network at all. We're proxying everything via the gateway, and we're only sending the Citrix protocol across the wire to the end user. So this is an extremely secure way to access resources that prevents, any sort of attacks from being delivered from that endpoint into the environment. and also protects that end user with regard to the delivery of the applications and desktops, because all that they're getting are just the view of the applications. Nothing's actually sitting on that endpoint. If you go to the next one, I think that one just sort of puts everything together. Yeah, so again, so availability is our ability to keep those applications and desktops up and running, because we're providing not just local availability, but also availability across different locations. The security aspect is always important to us, to keep properties secure and keep users and resources secure. And then here, more importantly, that secure remote access feature is key to taking, to allowing those users to access the virtual apps and virtual desktops in a very secure manner that does not require a VPN. And I'll turn it back over to you, Bruce. Thank you.
Very good, Manny. Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we go to the next slide, I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask, and also check with Linda and see if there's questions to to either of the three of us. But so yeah, I'm on vacation. I left my work laptop at home because I didn't want to do any work on vacation. But guess what? I have to go log in and do some work. I'm on my daughter's laptop. Do I get the same resources on my daughter's non-company laptop as I do on my company controlled laptop?
Yeah,
Yes.
do you want to take that, Oscar?
Yeah, you absolutely would see the same. And again, that is dependent on a couple of things. So yes, is the answer, because you are the person that's connecting and you're the person that's being authenticated. We can, however, also do things like do an endpoint analysis, like, is this something that meets security requirements? That's an option that's always been available with Citrix for a long time. However, the short answer is yes, it would be the same. And that's the nice piece of it, is that no matter what system that I'm on, it could be an iPad, and you will get the full. So if you're your daughter's iPad and you just want to go ahead and connect to the website, we have a full client, we have a web client, and you can still access the same applications because you are the person authenticating and you're the person that has been assigned those resources, right?
Yep. Yeah. And just to expand on that just a little bit, it should be based on organizational policies, right? If your organization's policy is, hey, we only want users connecting from managed devices, then you can restrict access to just managed devices, right? We can tweak the security up and down based on what the organization is trying to achieve.
Excellent. Thank you. What about bots? Right? Is there any kind of bot management built into the Citrix ADC?
Yes, absolutely. There's bot management, there's web app firewall. As I said, there's a whole host of security features that are built in there, but bot management is certainly one of those that is built in there. And again, there's probably too many for me to rattle off here, but bot management, web app firewall, IP reputation, those are some of the ones that I think are high value security features that are available inside the ADC platform.
Great. Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Oscar. Well, in summary then, DynTek partners with you to secure your critical data center applications and assets. DynTek engineers have a proven track record of successfully deploying to your industry. We provide heightened security that meets or exceeds all industry and government audit requirements. And we enable you to proactively and effectively protect your data center while enabling a productive, there's probably the key there, productive end user experience. So if your end users are happy, you're happy. That makes a sense there. So ways to contact us. We have you can reach out to us at marketing@dyntech.com. But if you're interested in any of these areas, security and remote access, app delivery optimization, data center modernization, we are able to work with you on that. And DynTek represents many other industries, but this is a Citrix and DynTek call here, so please reach out to us if you have any questions. Linda, do we have any questions that we can field in 1 minute here with the conclusion of our webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder to everybody attending today, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A module or the chat module and send over your questions. But I do have one question. I think maybe Manny might have addressed this right after it was asked, but I'm going to just reiterate it. Is with the gateway, does that replace the VPN?
Absolutely, yes. So the way that the ADC gateway works is that it proxies the connection between the end user and the internal resources. There is no SSL VPN connection from that end user to any internal resources whatsoever. As far as the end user is concerned, it's the ADC that is the server that's responding to them. And so there's no way for anything on the endpoint to get into the network and vice versa, right? The only thing that's being passed through the gateway is that Citrix protocol.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
I think that's all our questions for today. So I'd like to thank Bruce and Manny and Oscar for your time today and all the information, as well as everyone that was able to join. I will send out a recording of the event so you can reference it or share it with your colleagues. If you want to get a hold of Bruce or Manny or Oscar or any of our experts, reach out to marketing@dyntek.com and we will make sure we make that connection. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks all.
Take care, everybody.